Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much, and it would not be the same without you. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for his contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. He also specializes in the horror genre, but does amazing commission pieces. So check him out. You'll see tonight we are minus my little bubbly companion, Amelia Pisano, who is under the weather tonight. So let's send her lots of love and light and healing energy. So hopefully she will be back with us sooner rather than later. Now, tonight, we welcome the return of Reverend Barbara DeLong, who I just love. She's just like total got carte blanche here. And we're going to be discussing her research on giants, myth or reality. So you guys have to check out her website. We're going to be putting it up here for you guys to go in and see. And you can find all of this stuff, but there's so much interest in it. And they're just it's very sporadic information, and it's a lot of the same sort of inspiration or inspiration information. Been a day, people. Been a day. That's all I'm going to say. So without further ado, and I thank everybody for chiming in already. You guys are like awesome. Nice to see you all here. Just a reminder, we have 7 different chat rooms. So it's like a super highway that comes into like one lane. So it's going to take us a bit. We're not ignoring anybody. We're also on Roku TV, which doesn't have a chat room. So please be patient with us. And a big shout out to Wayne, Chris, Dolly. Thank you for coming by. And Mark, hello. And we will have some fun tonight. So again, here we are. Reverend Barbara DeLong, how are you?
I'm fabulous. How are you doing?
I like fabulous. I'm a little tongue-tied tonight, but I think, I'm on my way to becoming fabulous. I know it's just going to be outstanding. So, so welcome. I just want to let everybody know your website is here on the stream here. They can go in and find it. And Mark, I know. Amelia made me that little alien in the back. Isn't he awesome? He's huge. He's like 3 feet tall. I know. He's in my office because he'd probably wig me out at night. So anyway, there he is. Okay, I'm seeing all kinds of comments coming in, but we're going to hold on to those. So Barbara, thank you so much for joining us again. And the topic of conversation tonight is going to be giants. And as I was saying, as I'm sure you could hear, there's a lot of interest, but a lot of recycled information, a lot of misinformation. So I'm hoping you're going to be able to clarify all of this because we do get asked about this a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who can do this right. So where would you like to start? Maybe like what guided you into this research? And you dug pretty deep. I've read the website. It's fantastic.
Well, a great deal of the information came from my late husband, Patrick Cook.
Ah.
He had put most of it together. Not all, but Jason Jarrett did do a lot of material for me as well, and he's a lovely expert on giants. And then the best source for you on giants, especially if you're going into the biblical, is Michael Carter, and
Yes.
he is just phenomenal, and also Pitterman, Mark, I can't remember his first name. I think it's James Pitterman. He's written 2 books on the Nephilim. So, there is a lot of material out there. I think the biggest piece of trivia I can give you is that almost because I don't know for sure because we don't have material going back that far, but
Right.
almost all of the Nephilim were giants, but not all giants were Nephilim.
Okay. See, this is where I think a lot of people get confused.
Absolutely. I mean, you see a very tall, hunky person who's 7 feet tall who fits the description of giant,
Yes.
but is definitely not one of the fallen ones. So
Right.
I,
Right.
I, I dated one of those guys whose knuckles almost dragged on the ground. And trust me, not a Nephilim.
Not a Nephilim.
No, 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 no.
So where does it all start then? I mean, obviously, yes, the Nephilim is the big one, and that's the one that people really lean to. But this is throughout the entire world, and this goes back pre-biblical times.
Absolutely.
But the fact that it is, and the Bible does talk about it, is very fascinating. So how far back, where do you want to start with this? I am completely all yours, and I can most certainly keep up.
Well, the Bible says
Yes.
that the Nephilim came from the fallen angels who took human women to themselves as wives.
Mhm.
Now, let's also look at the fact that they didn't have marriage back then. So, right away, people have put their own spin on things. Um,
Yes.
and the fallen angels were all traditionally, according to description, they were giants. The
Mm.
the watchers, the angels, all came through as giant personas.
Mhm.
And the reality is that as an angel, they could take any form they wanted to. If you look back in Greek and in Greek history, the gods would always take on a different form, whether it be human or animal or whatever.
Mm.
So that assuming that you're not looking at these giant people raping itty bitty women.
Right.
They took on the right form in order to have
Yes.
the children.
Yes.
And so I don't really know. I know there were tribes of giants that were not Nephilim,
Right.
and then there were Nephilim. So
Mhm.
it comes down to today, and genetically, I think the DNA of giants has been distributed and
Mm.
and modified by the human condition.
Mhm.
I had a co-host a while back who had the red hair. Everybody in her family had extra digits on their fingers and toes,
Mm.
and they all had double rows of teeth,
Wow.
which are all triggers to you come from the line of giants. But she was not a giant. So
Right.
I think giants, as we know them,
Mhm.
taking away from the Nephilim because the Nephilim are no longer here. Um,
Right.
the giants, though, however, are. And what fascinates me no end is how they make such a big deal of giants, and yet at the same time there were the little people who are still here,
Yes. Yes.
there's not a big deal about them.
Right. I think it's because 'cause they're giants, and there's this big theory that, they eat people. It would take a little person, that'd be a big feat. But do you think maybe there's also, um, misinterpretation with the Bible, and words aren't interpreted properly? As we know, it happens, because it's been, how many times has it been changed, and modified as per languages and so on? And somewhere I think things get lost in translation as well.
I think you're right. They do, and
Yeah,
when you think of coming from Aramaic to Roman to Hebrew to to English at some point in time, yeah, the word for sky was heaven, and so when
right,
they talk about things coming from the sky, it's no, it was in the heaven, and
right,
so everybody misinterprets it.
right.
Um, just looking at the Bible, if you go back centuries before the Bible, a lot of the Bible stories have been taken from even more ancient,
Yes. Yes, yes,
situations.
yes,
So it's kind of like, in a way, it's our past trying to keep us informed of what happened. But over time, it's like that game, the telephone, where you whisper to one person who whispers to another person. And when you go
right.
through 20 people, what comes back was the ketchup was on the dog instead of
Right.
whatever the first message
Right.
was.
It's the fish that was this big was really just this big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right,
so the element of giants, I mean, they still are here.
right.
When the late, it's Korean or Chinese, Korean, I think, dictator died and his son took over, they had a picture of all of the army lined up, and it was little, man, 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 oops, giant, then
Big
man, man,
guy.
man. So,
Yes,
so the gene is still there, it's still active, and it's still feared.
right,
And I guess it's feared because of the biblical
mm,
connotations. But
right,
um,
right.
like I said before, Goliath was not a Nephilim. He was just a giant.
He was just a giant. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of stories that make reference to races of giants, even, in the Bible. Then we have um Wayne has comment, which also makes quite a bit of sense because Barbara, I often thought that the term giant referred to the idea of these beings were actually giants among men as they were faster, smarter, etc., not actually physically huge. I think they're pretty physically huge though. And you know,
Some of them were, but come on, we've heard of some of the great men. Alexander the Great was
yes,
a giant as a ruler, but he was normal size. And
right.
and I think that there's a great deal to be said for exactly what he said, that
Mm,
the term giant. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He's a giant in
mhm.
the
Among his peers and
yeah.
such. Yes,
So
yes,
yes, absolutely. We don't have, I think, in many ways, the limit. We don't have the vocabulary for what's going on here these days. When
right.
you think of the term alien, a lot of people think of little green men and grays and stuff like that. But today, the aliens are coming across our border, and they're escaping, bad things in their own
Yes,
countries. But the
right,
aliens are flooding us. The aliens are invading us, and
right.
it's not. It's a different kind of alien.
Right, right. Which I guess brings me to the extraterrestrial type of alien. I guess in a way, because that's another theory that they're another race of beings, much like, and I mean, I'm not going to compare the two per se, but I mean, you're looking at, let's say, Bigfoot, for example. They're pretty massive beings, little on the hairy side, of course, unlike some of the giants of yesteryear. But they believe that they were one of the same, that one just kept evolving and stayed hidden, and the other part were just killed off or died off.
Well, my theory is they're interdimensional,
Yes,
and they come
I
through a
agree.
portal and they wander around. It's like an amusement park here. Not
Yes. Oh,
maybe,
isn't it?
kind of. And
Yes.
and they go back through the portal. That's why there are no bones, there are no
That's right.
hides, there's no nothing. And
Right.
I do believe that they do exist, but they exist in areas where they hopefully don't run into humans. And when they do, I mean, let's face it, they throw rocks. They,
Right.
they don't try to kill off people. They don't try to mutilate people.
Mm,
There is, to my knowledge,
right.
um, there has not been any death connected to a conflict with a Yeti or a
Mm,
abominable snowman, or Bigfoot.
mhm.
So I don't believe they intend, whoever or whatever they are,
Right.
they don't intend harm to us, and that's our problem. Society has become fearful of things they don't understand. And
You think it's
because
partly because of conditioning?
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And when it comes to well, look at the book that I did with Kate Godsword. Before 1947, it was very common to see aliens or whatever. There was
Yes.
no hue and cry. There was no let's kill
Yes.
him or anything like that.
Yes.
Afterwards, and movies like The Alien came out and everything. We have become conditioned to be fearful of
Mm.
things we don't understand, which
Mhm.
is awful.
It is, the ancients coexisted with many of, these beings, and you're right, it seemed like it was a bit of a game changer with Roswell. That changed a lot, and, um, it did instill fear, because when you think about the fact that our indigenous people now, there's different stories with that, maybe you can clarify as well. Many of our indigenous people, ancient people, lived among giants, um, and I think you even write about it,
Yeah,
where, and this that was that Custer and his men came across, um, giants living amongst this tribe of people and killed them.
yeah. Well,
So that's
yeah.
way back.
Then the red-haired giants in the Nevada cave, the Indians drove them into a cave and set
Yes.
fire,
Yes.
and I don't know how many centuries later, when they were mining the guano that was there, the bat dung,
Mhm.
they found the bones and they found the arrows and they found the spears. I mean, they did exist, and
Yes.
we found their bodies all over the place. They're found in Europe. They're found here, and excuse me, in the 1800s, the
Mhm.
Smithsonian, you know, took all the bones, and from all I can gather, they were put on a barge and taken out in the middle of the ocean and dumped.
Yes. Yes. So again, we come back to, what is it about giants per se that leads everybody to complete tyranny with evidence of them? Like, I mean, the Smithsonian dumps them all off. Like, why? What is the benefit of that? You have them hidden.
Well, with the Smithsonian, it didn't conform to the theories that were out there, and
Uh,
so rather than rewrite history, they tried to destroy it.
right. Right.
And then you get into, if you're talking skeletons, then you're getting into the long-headed skeletons that have been found all over the world too,
Mhm.
and if you look at it's Akhenaten,
Yes.
had the long skull,
Yes.
and the pictures, the hieroglyphs of him and his wife are of definitely, I don't want to call them misshapen, but they weren't shaped like the rest of us,
Right. They
and
were
that was
elongated.
and the pictures of him were not flattering, and of every other pharaoh they have been flattering. Muscular,
Yes.
tall, even if he was 3 feet tall. But they were displayed as they were,
Mhm.
and I do believe that they may have been interdimensional as well.
I agree with you on that. I think that there were many, extraterrestrial beings, on or off the planet. I do believe they are dimensional and intermixed, and lived among the ancient people. You see evidence in petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, and monuments and structures, and all of these amazing discoveries that are being found with out of place artifacts and things that just don't make sense. Some that we have technology now. People go out and they can do their research, hence maybe why they're trying to censor it. But did I say that? I'm sorry. But
But it's true. It's true. It
yes,
it's actually a matter, among other things. It's real simple.
yes.
Nobody wants to rewrite history. Nobody wants to say we were wrong. Let's fix it, because civilizations before the flood, antediluvian um, mysteries are there, and we're
Mm,
beginning to pick up on a lot of the out of place artifacts, a lot of a lot of the things like the Great Pyramid and the pyramids in South America could only have been created with skills that came beyond whatever was here that people were capable of. It's
Mhm.
real simple. The tools just don't match the edifices.
Right.
Therefore, somebody else did it.
Right, exactly. But of course, academia will tell you, no, we're all conspiracy theorists. Um, Again, this is true as well. Wayne says even the paintings of him showed him with a green hue to his skin color, while other people who are shown in the same paintings are depicted with normal skin colors for humans that we've come to know.
Absolutely.
Right, and all of these things don't mean these beings are interdenominational. It just means we're being lied to about our history. Absolutely,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
and there's no reason except if we admit that we've been wrong,
Hmm.
then people lose faith in whoever is talking
Hmm.
and, they lose their power. And it's a power struggle.
Hmm.
Keep us dumb and we'll believe what you say. And then
Hmm.
and then you have the power and we
Hmm.
stay in darkness. And it's very sad. It really is because for the most part, it doesn't matter. Except for the publishing companies who have to, which I think would welcome it because they
Yes,
have to reprint everything.
yes, yes. But I mean, people aren't stupid, people are doing the research. People want to know, hence why we're having this discussion on the show tonight out of different things that we have talked about, because this is actually floating around right now. And I've had more people messaging saying, what about these giants? Were they real? Is this just a story? you know there's one show that was on, going back to Bigfoot, just quickly, in a place called Portlock, Alaska, which seemed to be a huge exception, that gentle giants that Bigfoot often has. Apparently, yeah, he was pretty terrifying. 8 people, everything. And they've got the indigenous tribe up there actually has, I guess, oral history that stated this. So what makes them go, you know, big? I want to say it because, we don't really know typically what the behaviors are. But I mean, I'm sure it happens at some point. I mean, cannibalism exists.
Look at the Donner Party.
Ah, yes. Yeah, exactly. It
Um,
exists. Yeah.
hunger does strange things to people.
Yes.
But
Yes.
as far as the Giants go, I I think today somebody that size is hopefully is drafted by the basketball people or whatever. I
It's
mean,
true.
they're they're
Yes.
they do exist. They are out there, but it's a DNA transfer. It's not at this
Mm,
point in time.
mhm,
It's something that has been latent that suddenly is activated, and therefore we do get big people. And
mhm.
and it's sad because do we want to live in a society where everybody has to be a certain size or they're ousted or they're shoved. It's that Twilight Zone show where the woman was going under surgery so she could look like everybody else, and when they were finished with the surgery and she was a beautiful woman and
Yes.
everybody took their masks off and everybody else was ugly,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
she
I
was she
remember
was
that
not
one.
the norm. So
Yeah.
so it's very sad to think that we're being shoved into molds that most of us don't fit into.
Right. Right. I can understand that, as well, with people that we would deem giant, be 7 or 8 feet tall. And now they have, they tend to have misformed joints, and the really tall people. So it's not like, the giants of what we're all thinking. And you have some people who are like 20 feet tall.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the bones that were discovered in this country were 7, 8, 9 feet tall,
Right.
um, giants.
Yes.
But and they were mixed in with the indigenous peoples, and
Right.
there was nothing that denoted that they were um, something to be feared. They were part of a society, and in many cases were actually the leader of that particular tribe. So it's our concept. We've been taught to fear, and we've been taught to attack things that are different. So if something landed on the White House lawn, we would shoot it down before anything else, instead of who are you and what do you want?
Right,
Um,
right.
so,
But I
and
think a man who's 7 or 8 feet tall would definitely we would more than accept somebody like that, but when you're talking
20.
considerably bigger, that would be terrifying if you're a little itty bitty like Amelia size.
Well,
5 foot
you know,
tall.
yeah, you make a point. But when
Yeah,
when I lived in Westchester before I moved down here, there was a road in a local town that had 4 or 5 houses that were built to the dimensions of the little people.
interesting.
So the little people are accepted totally by society.
Right,
Totally,
right,
totally, totally.
right,
Giants, not so much.
right,
So, in a circus, in a sideshow, sure.
right.
But it,
Trying to
it
share space. Well, I mean, you have to think about food itself. I mean, you can imagine somebody that big, and again, I'm going higher, bigger scale here. How much food would you require every single day?
think
Just to,
about what football players eat.
there you go. See, it's a
I
lot of
mean,
calories. Yeah.
yeah, they're massive
Yes,
and they eat a lot.
a lot. Right.
So,
But,
it's sort of like, what will we put up with and what will we not?
mhm,
And apparently, it's if they're bigger than us, we're scared.
right.
If they're smaller than us, they can coexist. And what I found interesting was in the Tennessee area, going back to the 1800s, they found battlegrounds where giants and little people fought together. I don't know who they fought, but
Mhm.
but there were burial sites where the giants and the little people were buried together. So
Oh,
it was kind of like, is this a place um, where we really attack something that isn't exactly like us? It's frightening to think that we've become that kind of society. And when you stop to think about um, aliens,
mhm,
extraterrestrials,
mhm.
and actually, to tell the truth, I do believe that some of the extraterrestrials we talk about were probably here on the earth before we were. So we're really the aliens.
We are.
We're just more present. But it's sort of like, it's a matter of, does the government do governments know more than we do? Obviously they do.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe that too. Yeah.
and so now we begin to not only mistrust people that are different, but we also
Mm,
begin to mistrust the government. And so we become a planet in which we attack what we don't understand.
yes.
And
Yes.
in that case, I do believe that the earth is in quarantine.
That's an interesting concept because I do think mankind is deemed to be very volatile. I mean, we kill for sport. We don't just
Yeah,
kill for food. Um, we are, I mean, to kill or be at war with something different than us. Heck, we do it with those who are just like us. People get divided over a difference in faith, a difference in race, a difference in so many things. I have always said we are the human race, and we shouldn't be divided. We should try to be as unified as possible because there's always, those higher up on the food chain who will do their best to keep you down at ground level. So it's so important that people stay unified. But here we are. And when you say quarantined, I can see that. Don't let them off that planet. They're all crazy. So, you know, so in quarantine, as in, can you explain that to people who may be
sure.
wondering, what does she mean by that?
I believe that the source of all creation created everything, everyone. And that doesn't mean just human. That means aliens too.
Right.
And so until we can learn to get along with those that are different,
Mm-hmm.
I would keep us quarantined. I would keep the planet closed to anything that comes from another realm, another dimension, another whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the material that Billy Meyer has put out,
Mm-hmm.
there was a time frame way back during around the time of Atlantis, probably prior, um, that there was a race of people that literally sent their soldiers off world to have empathy and
Mm-hmm.
understanding outbred, so that when they came back to Earth, they had no problem with destroying people because they had no feeling about the fact that it was a life they were taking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for us to understand that not only do we have to get along first with each other and then with other species that may come into the mix that have the same source spirit within them. They
Mm-hmm.
just come, it's sort of, it's beyond a different language, it's a different DNA, but it's still from the same source that created everything.
Right.
So are they brothers and sisters as humans? No. Are they brothers and sisters according to spirit? Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Because I think that people don't consider the fact that if you do believe in reincarnation, and even people of faith, believe in reincarnation. I mean, most faiths do speak of it, but you can reincarnate. You don't have to reincarnate as a human.
Nope, you
You
don't.
can reincarnate into, another race of people.
A green blob.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So I think anything that has essence, you can come back as that essence. Or
Well,
in
there was a time when we were all one. There was a time when we could communicate with animals.
yes.
And so the element of separatism has been inbred into us, and it's a matter of understanding. And when you look at the fact that there is war on this planet almost always, why would anyone, who would you go to say, take me to your leader, when we kill each other, so haphazardly?
Mhm.
Um, no, no,
That's
no, no,
true.
no. We are literally, I mean, how arrogant of us to think that we are a master race. Give me a break.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. It's true. We often do things, shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah.
We have that sort of mentality. We are I think we're bred to be fearful from, and I say bred, I mean, it's part of who we are because, it's a lineage thing. It's like it's DNA. It's like imprinting. People's fears, go off to your fetus.
Well,
If you, and it just keeps going, and then you come into the classroom, and then you come into your religion, and you come into your family and life, and it's scary out there.
well, there's a great song in South Pacific. I know I just really dated myself. It's called "You've Got to Be Taught,"
Right.
and you have to be taught to hate. You have to be taught to fear.
Yes.
As a baby, you are 100% love,
Right.
and it starts with your parents
Yes.
and your teachers and your religion, and
Yes.
before long, you don't trust and you don't love, and you are
Mhm.
you hold back, and the original baby, if put, I don't know, on an
Mm.
island with just love, would
Mhm.
would be fine there, but if you tried to mix it into today,
Mhm.
wouldn't survive.
And that's very sad.
Yeah.
That's very, very sad. And it's true. I agree with you on that count. Everything is bred into us. And, we're taught that we have, a loving God and creator, but yet we're taught to fear as well. Oh, we don't want to do that. Or, I mean, oh my gosh. And I only make reference to that. Just for example, a person who will, commit suicide, for example, take their own lives. In the Catholic faith, you're taught that no, only God has the right to take your life. Don't do
Yeah.
that, or you're not going to like where you're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Well, many spirits that I spent 2 decades, in the field of trying to help cross, even now, Amelia and I work very hard at that. And a big thing is the faithful people are just afraid to, well, I'm not going to I'll stay here. I'll take my chances here because I don't want to consider where I'll go because I made, that ultimate, sin of taking your own life. So it is conditioning, I think, to a great degree on many levels, not just our faith with that. But Jade makes a good point. Hello, Jade. We write the slate of who our children will be every day.
And it depends on how we live our life, as an
Yes.
example,
Right.
which determines. And most parents don't understand that.
Mm.
They're saying, you'll be better than me, and you'll do better than I did, and whatever. And the reality is, if you teach them love, compassion,
Mm.
and insight, and not fear,
Mm.
then they grow up to be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if they are forced into a mold that we think is a better mold than we are,
Mm.
then we're taking away their free will to become who they're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. It really is. And when you look at society today, look what they do with the quarantines and the masks. They're saying masks are coming back, yet they admit they don't do anything. But we're going to require you to wear your mask. I mean,
Right. It's like, yeah, human conditioning. For sure it is. For sure it is. I think, we're in this cycle where we just keep going around in circles. Why are we not taught to, and I know where it's going to go, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. But why are we not taught to embrace all of these amazing abilities that we were meant, that we came here with as an essence, and we're supposed to have telepathic abilities. We're supposed to have our psychic abilities open. We're supposed to be empathic. We're supposed to be able to have that empathy for everything. Why are we taught mundane things that a factory worker, from the time you literally go to school, listen to your teacher, here's things you're never going to use in your life, things like that. Most people can't even balance a checkbook when they get out of high school, but yet all of these natural abilities we have, what's up with that?
well, no, you're right. I mean, I have 2 master's degrees, and I never used anything
Right.
at all that
Right.
I learned during that entire education. Whatever I know now, I taught myself.
Wow. See?
And so it's a matter of allowing somebody to explore their individuality and support them in their journey as far as going where they are drawn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when my son went to college, he said, I said, where are you aiming? And he said, I don't know yet. And I said, that's okay. Try everything on. There's only one thing you can say to me that will upset me, and I'll pull you out of college. And that's, to get a fine arts degree, or, to get a degree that doesn't equip you for anything. And I said, if you want to do ant farming, that's fine. If you want to do whatever, but don't ever say to me, you just want a liberal arts degree.
Right.
Because I will flip out and you will be home selling newspapers in a heartbeat.
Right. Well, I do think, I mean, I think people should definitely follow their dreams and realize that we are, in fact, a soul having a human experience. I think
Yeah.
Chris is sharing a brain with me right now. We are spirit beings chose to come into the physical And that's our lot. School is in session.
It's
Yes.
true. And not only
Yeah.
that, I think what really bothers me greatly is that the government is now coming into the schools and telling children
Yeah.
what sex they are,
Yeah.
and just telling them who they should be. And I mean, it's, if I had a child today, the
Yes.
child would not be in school. I would be homeschooling.
Yeah. I know people who are really leaning on that. I think, and Jenny makes um, makes a good point as well. Trade school is where to go. How many tradespeople have we lost? Because that was the way. Back
Y-
in the day, you had more tradesmen, and now we are losing so many tradespeople
Oh
because
yeah.
they've retired and nobody's wanted to continue on because they've been told, "Hey, computers are the way to go. Do this, do this, do this." I know so many people who homeschool, and I'll tell you, it's a different experience. I have family members who do it with their children. It is a different experience
Oh yeah. And
altogether. Those children are in touch with their abilities and everything else.
well, you mentioned a whole bunch of qualities that should be taught, but we have all of them. People, they are discouraged in exploring all of those different, the telepathy and the clairs, and all of those things. I mean, they enrich you. They enable
Mhm.
you to do better in life.
Right.
I can't tell you how often I fall back on those qualities when
Right.
dealing with people than I do with, whatever their resume has. I mean, I had a college professor who came to me once, and she was telling me about all of the things she did and all of her things, and I said to her, "Well, your Comus Vitus is great." And she said, "Well, what's that?" And I said, "You're talking about your CV, right?" And she said, "Yeah, my CV." And I said, "That's Comus Vitus." And she
Mhm.
said, "Well, what does that mean?" And I said, It's your educational history. Did you never learn Latin?"
Oh boy.
Um,
Yeah, right there.
so
Yeah.
it's sort of like, pay attention. You can study and get certificates for
Mm.
a tremendous number of things, but
Mhm.
are they worth your while? Do you use them in life? And the answer
Well,
is no.
life is too short.
Yeah,
It's too short to spend most of your life, you know, in a classroom environment. I think people learn by, like you say, by example.
yeah,
And you go back into, ancient times and you were taught by your parents. You were. They taught you the skills you needed to know to survive and to honor your elders, and your oral history was so important and you kept up with that. And here we are with a history that somebody else is dictating. We have
yeah.
absolutely no freaking clue what the majority of our real history is,
And the
and
and the
that's
Greek
okay apparently.
and the Greeks had
Yeah,
temples where they went for dreams and dream interpretation.
right.
I mean, they honored those aspects of developing,
Yes.
creatively, those aspects
Mm,
within you. All of those modalities that you talked about, literally, um, flower and are fueled
right.
by creativity. I was so lucky. I had a mother who, anything I wanted to do creatively, she encouraged,
Mhm,
I didn't have to go to school for any of them. She just gave me the free will to experience them, whether it was painting or reading or writing. Or my very first book, I dictated to my mother when I was 3 years old, and I
mm.
illustrated it.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
now it wasn't published, but I have it still.
Right.
And I dictated it to her. She typed it up. I illustrated it. We taped it together, and it was my first book.
Wow. See? It just goes to show you. I think we need to consider letting our children have that creative control in their own lives,
Yeah.
and be open to the wonderment and cherish that wonderment, because it just, before you know it, it's gone. Life corrupts you.
Well,
And I
and
hate to put it that way because life can be beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about love, light,
yeah.
breathe live your best life. I'm all about that, but it does corrupt you. It's hard.
But look what we've done with cell phones and
Yes.
computers.
Yes.
Um, kids are so focused on their cell phones, they don't see the beauty of a sunset. They don't
It's
understand
true.
Mother Nature. They don't understand Schumann energy. I mean, they don't get it.
Mhm.
And the more they get into the technology, the more technology gets into them.
Well, one example is virtual reality.
Yeah.
How many of these video games are people put on these goggles? Well, I want to be out in the forest at night. So why don't you go out into the forest at night? I don't
Bug
understand.
bugs.
Right? AI. That's fearful to me. That's a really scary thing to me.
But it's sort of, I think there's a commercial on TV where a family is going out and then the mother has everybody put their cell phone in there in a box and you don't get the box back till the end of the trip. Makes sense.
Right.
Be in the moment for God's sake. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
you incarnated into a physical reality to be a part of a physical reality, not a
Mhm.
virtual one.
Ha. Good point. Good point. And we are heading down that road, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
Everything is becoming, virtual. Everything is AI. This is what we're striving for. Do you think we're missing the point on everything? Like I say, I go back to our history and how much of it has been altered or hidden from us, even our own abilities, the things that we should naturally know how to do. And we've been dumbed up.
Oh,
Why?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's power.
Yes.
There are those who are in power who want to take those aspects away from us
Mm,
and want to control us.
right.
And the more they addict us to the internet, to cell phones, to I mean, I have a neighbor whose granddaughter thinks she should be a boy because they told her on on one of the chat rooms that
Mhm,
she sounded like she probably should be a boy. And
mhm,
so she now says she's a boy.
mm,
And why, it just it blows me away.
right, right. Well, I mean, there's that level of choice as well, and it's all about, choice, and it should be all about choice, I guess within reason. But I think we're losing sight of a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Like we're kept so preoccupied that we miss the basic stuff, and we
Oh,
don't get
yeah.
mad like about things we should get mad about. When I look at, I spent a lot of time, of course, whenever I know you're coming on, I just throw myself into your website, which is, I know I have a lot of fun with it. So for the audio listeners, it's barbaradelong.com. Go check it out. Go check the globe out too. She wants to know where you're from. So I
Yes,
remember.
get me dots.
Exactly. I remember. But I realize, like, even just reading this whole bit about giants, I realize, there's so much information in there. I'm like, how? I know quite a bit because I make a point of learning something every single day. I think it's important to educate yourself, even if it's just one small thing. If that's all you have time for, just do something, keep evolving on different levels. But I realize how much I actually don't know when I visit your site, which is great. It's an amazing compliment to you and your husband for putting this together. But there's so much history that has been kept from us. We should be mad about that. And the fact that some people think it's just okay to keep erasing it, thinking it's just going to go away, or we're never going to address it again. It's not
Well, well, one of the cool things about the website is one of the buttons there is my library,
right.
and it's got like almost, I think it's 400. It's more than 400, but less than 500 books on there.
Wow.
I have read every one of them.
Wow. Wow.
And you ask, where did I learn it? The library has all those books I've read,
Mhm.
and all of those books have been on a radio show.
Wow. That's
So
fantastic.
it's and it wasn't a matter of putting myself to school. It was a matter of first respecting the author that had done the work and
Mm,
making sure I had read the work so that I could speak intellectually with him or her. And I went through it the other day just out of curiosity, and probably more than half of the people on there are PhDs.
Wow.
And, I sat back and I thought, now, in my wildest imagination, I would not have thought I could sit down with a PhD and talk about their topic.
Mm.
And yet, I took the time to read the book. Did I learn everything he had to say? No, but enough so that I could engage in a conversation
Mhm.
and learn something from them,
Mhm.
which was phenomenal.
Right.
So, and the guy I had on last night, his book is Deja Vu, has everything already
It's
happened.
coming on. Yeah. Yeah.
I learned something about him that I was fascinated with. He wrote the book when he was 17. But Poland would not allow him to publish it until he was 18.
Right.
He wrote it.
Exceptional.
He wrote it in Polish. He did the interpretation into English,
Mhm.
and he's just the most charming young man you could ever talk to.
I love that. I love that. See, and again, I think that's brilliant. The fact that he could sit down and write a book at 17.
Yeah.
And that's deep content. Like, that's not just like some fly by night. This is really, it's one, anytime you get into anything that would be deemed high strangeness or unexplained, and you can put pen to paper, because it's not like you're just writing a basic little essay. You're putting pen to paper and writing a book about it. That's a lot of information you have to supply.
Well, I said, how did you do all the research? He said, well, the writing of the book only took about 3 months, but the research took a couple of years. But
Yes.
but he was 17,
Yeah.
16, 15, 14. He started
Yes.
his research when he was 14. What did
That's
you do at
crazy.
14? I crocheted potholders.
I can assure you I wasn't writing books. Wow.
But
Wow.
it's a matter
Yeah.
of, like
Yeah.
I said, I had a mother who encouraged me, and
Mhm.
when I I mean, she didn't pay for lessons and everything and things like that. She did it, as was adaptable for my age at whatever time it was.
Right.
And so, it's a matter of, I guess most people don't know that when we're born,
Mhm.
we have memories of past lives. We have talents from past lives that are still there. And as
Right.
a child, for the first 3 years, especially, you will be drawn to those aspects or areas that you actually have mastered in a past life. So if parents are really smart, they
Mhm.
look at the directions that the children are drawn in and support those areas.
Mhm.
Beethoven was playing the piano at 5, 6, whatever,
Yes. Yes.
and he was encouraged. His father taught piano. He was lucky, but
Right.
it was kind of like, when I look back on the things that I did as a child, I actually manifested them 30, 40, 50, 60 years later.
Right.
So it's a
Right.
matter of, if you pay attention to what your child is drawn to,
Mhm.
and just encourage them to investigate it or play with it or whatever,
Mhm.
their life will be so much easier because they are flowing with a pattern in an area that they have past experience that they can apply to this lifetime.
Mhm. Yes. I agree. I agree. Well, there's also people who think that, again, that goes back to more of a DNA, even imprinting, like, bringing things in from your own ancestors. Knowledge. I had all kinds of knowledge as a child, and I mean, past life, yeah, I've had, past life regressions and things like that, and I realized a lot of the stuff that I felt wholeheartedly came from, some of my ancestral roots as well, which is probably why I love history so much, because I have a very historical family lineage, and it's a gift that keeps on giving. It just keeps taking me down so many other paths.
Well, you also have your spiritual DNA, which is
Yes.
different.
Yes.
And that comes in, excuse me, when your spirit enters the physical form. Pollen.
Mm.
When your spirit enters the physical form at the moment when life begins,
Mhm.
you bring with you your hall of records, and that is
Yeah.
incorporated into your human DNA so that you have that you can draw on if you choose to.
So I guess that's bringing us back to being dumbed up because I agree, we should be able to draw on our own records without having to. I mean, I'm grateful for gifted people because I mean, I've helped many people because of my own abilities, as I'm sure you have. So I'm always grateful for that. But I always feel like it's sad that people can't just say, "No, I know this. I know this." But it's just been taken away.
In a way, but we also are letting it go.
I agree.
I mean,
That's a good point.
as you get to a point as an adult, you
Yes.
have the freedom to go back and grab at this. And
Right.
I mean, um, I think the fact that I started a spiritual journey really, really early on
Mhm.
helps a lot.
Mhm.
And the more I touched into those gifts that were there and realized I can use this. This is really
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
I painted the mandalas for my deck of cards.
Yes.
Um, and in another place and time, I
Mhm.
was an artist, but
Right.
once the deck was created, I stopped painting
Right.
because I didn't need to paint anymore.
Right. That
So
part of your journey was complete.
done, tied that up, karma done, whatever it was.
Right.
And so then the element of writing is also something that I do believe comes from a past life or lifetimes.
Mhm.
And so we have such a richness available to us inside of us
Mhm.
that we aren't tapping into and utilizing because we are overloaded with
Well,
learn this, learn this, learn
and
this.
this doesn't help.
Nope, it doesn't.
The technology, which just takes you away from the hard work, it just makes it easier. And I believe that you do, for some people, you do have to work hard to develop, to redevelop, relearn. But maybe, it's like riding a bicycle though. Once you learn how to do it, you
Yeah,
should be able to just get back up and do it. But it is such a struggle. There's a question for you. Your human DNA is 50% from your mother, 50% from your father. Where does the spiritual DNA come into play?
comes into play when your spirit enters the body. Your spirit is eternal. Your spirit is has full awareness of every lifetime you've ever had.
Hmm.
So when that moment of life begins, it's kind of like the fetus doesn't have a heartbeat at first. It doesn't have the essence of life yet. But when that begins, that opens the portal for the spirit to enter into the fetus
Hmm.
and incorporate its DNA, its journey record, so to speak, its map for this lifetime
Hmm.
is brought with it. And at the moment of death, the spiritual DNA, having accumulated a lot more, um, moves on to the other side where
Hmm.
it assimilates everything and then chooses where next to go or how next to go.
Hmm.
But there is a difference between human DNA and spiritual DNA. Human DNA, of course, brings with it the physicality and the inclinations spiritually that you have as a family. Spirit DNA is totally different, and it's interesting because when you think of my spiritual DNA is that I have to spiritually do this or spiritually do that. That's not the way it is. Your
Hmm.
spiritual DNA is here to experience physicality in many different dimensions and ways. So the purpose of my spiritual DNA this lifetime may well be learning how to deal with a different kind of person or something like that, as opposed to, doing something great that, my name will go down in history forever. Um, my name will be on the internet forever, whether I'm
Right.
here or not. But that's different.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I agree. Um, so essentially, this journey, um, how how do we take back control? because people, I feel, and without getting, too political, but I feel that we are losing control. Like I truly believe that there are things out there now that it's just not even being hidden anymore. It's like, nah, heck with it. Here it is. Love it, don't love it, doesn't matter. It's the way we're going. And it's sad because I think we as a people have really lost our way.
No, no, we haven't.
No?
Um, we're here to learn.
Yes.
We have a difficult situation to learn in.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how do you maintain your independence without getting overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
by the need to shove you into a mold.
Mm-hmm.
So there's meditation, there's all sorts of spiritual things you can do,
Right.
and then opening up those portals to your different clairs,
Right.
um, and and getting yourself into a better rhythm with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
That's a big
controls
one.
nobody controls that.
Right.
Nobody controls your ability to learn, to
Right.
grow, to express yet.
Right.
And so, yes, as society as a whole, um,
That's where I think we're a bit lost. It's like I think we're being pulled in too many different directions.
well, they
What to
tell
say,
us
what to do, what to like, what not to like, it gets a little bit overwhelming, I think,
the
for
last
people.
time I voted, I was given a card to put into a machine
Mhm.
to tap out my selections,
Yes.
and then the card was spit back at me, and I was to put it into another machine. I
Mhm.
put a blank card in, I got a blank card out, I took it to the other machine, and it went in, and I said, "But I didn't vote." He said, "Oh, yeah, you did." I said, "There was nothing on the card." He said, "You just couldn't see it." I said, "There was nothing on the card." And
Ba,
I
ba,
walked
ba.
away. I
Right.
walked away saying, "I did not vote." I got a sticker, said I did.
I know, yay. Right.
And I'm not the only one that questioned it.
Right. Yeah.
So, yes, we are living in a society where it is harder to be spiritual, harder to be true to ourselves, and yet isn't that the lesson?
Right. Right. And that may be just it. I mean, it's a tough one because people, I feel, are angry, hopeless, you know. I think when you
Well,
lose someone.
it comes to a point of why bother voting,
Yeah.
knowing that they're cheating. They've proven that it
Mhm.
was cheating.
Mhm.
We're coming up on another election. What have they done to correct that? Nothing.
No. No, that's yeah, that's a
So
segment and a half right there. Yeah.
just tell me
Yeah.
who you're going to elect and let me know. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll go and vote again.
Mhm.
This time I'm going to take pictures,
Mhm.
because to me, I'm not stupid.
No.
It was a blank card,
Yeah. Right.
and I wasn't the only one that was saying that's so weird. I talked to my son who voted
Mhm.
in the same district.
Mhm.
There was stuff on his card,
Right.
wasn't on mine.
Yes. Yes. See, that's just one example, a very simplistic one, one that you are aware of and you are looking at it and you're an educated individual, you know what you're doing. And when you're looking at things that are on an even bigger scale that has been kept from us, and I'll come full circle a little bit, not just on giants, but little people on different things that are out there that we're made to feel very foolish. No, it's a conspiracy theory. I always say, let me get my tin hat. I'm not done yet. Right? It's like there's things out there that we're made to feel very foolish about. These things don't exist. Well, I'm sorry. Look about I don't remember. I think it might have been in South America or it might have been in the southern United States. Forgive me. I'm a bit sketchy on the details, where they found a huge human skull. They couldn't debunk it. Like it wasn't something that was, oh no, this is Photoshop. It existed, and the farmer gave it up to go for analysis. It was the right thing to do. Give it to the powers that be. Give it to the museum.
Right.
But then to be told that no one ever existed, that's nothing. Like it's like there's too much effort put into many aspects of our life, especially our history.
Well, yeah, but it's sort of like, how stupid are we? The Egyptians had copper and wooden tools.
Yes.
They didn't build the Great Pyramid. Give me a break.
Right.
They,
Right.
look
And
at
they'll tell you you're a conspiracy theorist if you believe that.
the Teotihuacan. They have that Avenue of the Dead, and they got all these little launching pads along it, and the steps are not built for human feet.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You don't build steps unless the people that are there,
Yes.
and these steps are not built for human feet. They just aren't.
Right. Right.
So don't tell me it was because, I don't know, they had a shortage of stone. What? No.
No.
And we
it's
buy it.
true.
We buy
It's
it.
true. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
their tombs and stuff like that.
So why do we accept it so easily? I mean,
Because we were
it,
taught
it,
to.
yeah, because it's a cycle. Every few years, just burn some books. Let's just, knock a few statues over. Didn't happen. Because the history insults you in some aspects, but it is what it is. It happened.
Look at the Sphinx. The
Yes.
Egyptians were meticulous. They did everything to proportion.
Yes.
That damn head is not in proportion to the body.
No, it's true. Yeah, I know it's true. I mean, I've been there. I've seen it, and I've just sat there. I'm just like, that is just so wrong.
They didn't say, "Whoops, let's start again."
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the original head.
No.
So it's sort of like, and the inside of the tomb is not for human proportions either. The Grand Gallery, you have
no
to.
one's ever been in it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to almost crawl up a bit. Not crawl, but it's teeny and tiny, and then the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. How the heck did that get there?
And he's never been in there. I crawled in there. He's never been in there. But they tell you that now. They'll say no. Now you see, with some things they are becoming more open about it. Like now they'll say to you, no, the king was never buried here. We don't know why this is here. Maybe it was intended, but he was never buried here. There was something greater. People go in there having really mystical things happen to them, and we know that it was something else. But what?
Part of the mystical stuff that happens is because people expect to have a mystical experience.
Right.
So they have one because everybody else does.
Manifest that.
Yeah.
Don't manifest those mystical experiences, because it's better than the alternative of just being told something mundane, and it feels like you're having your intelligence majorly insulted, and that to me is unforgivable. But it's also 14,000 years old, at least.
Well, and the fact is that the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid and the little ones too, and a lot of the Teotihuacan temples were all built before the last flood, which puts them back 14,000, 16,000, 30,000 years. It's another culture that was here.
Right.
It's another civilization that was here, and they're finding the out of place objects.
Yes. Yes.
And not being able to explain them. So, and I think that's very frustrating. So they lie and they create stories, and they, cosmic trash got dumped on the planet by accident. Anything to preserve their theories that everything happened after 96,000 years BC.
Right.
No, it didn't.
Right. No, I know it's true. When you're finding out of place artifacts that can go back, they've shown some things to be 250, 300 million years old.
Yeah.
Don't tell me we're the first kick at the can here on this planet. I don't think so.
Well, They
you
talk
know?
about the teachers of wisdom that were here and taught humanity. Who were they?
Right.
Where'd they come from?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I am going to take a really quick, I have to do station and sponsor ID. So, for those of you who are tuning in, you are being made privy to an amazing show. We're kind of like going off in different directions as always, but Barbara is just a wealth of information on different levels. So, anyway, hope you're enjoying the show. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans, fully sponsored by amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been our sponsors since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, for his contribution of his time, music, and his voice for our intro and outro. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which you can find on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our banners and logos. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. So again, you are tuning into the Outer Realm with myself, Michelle DeRoche, minus my little bubbly companion, Amelia Pisano, and our very special guest, Reverend Barbara DeLong. And we started off talking about giants, myth or reality. We're kind of popping back and forth, but it's a very amazing conversation. So let's see where the next half hour takes us. Hold on here. Just going to put up a couple comments. We're dealing with things far older than we're taught to believe. So it's important to keep an eye open in mind. Things are not as we're taught to believe, and making reference to something that Chris said. And Dolly, based on where we're talking about the Sphinx being much older than we thought, can you see a possible pattern in time? Yeah, I believe so. Folgers. Thank you, Dolly. I got to pop up all these Folgers commercials, which basically, I'll give a little remind out there for those who want to do a commercial. We'll give you some free advertising for whatever it is you're advertising. Keep it clean, people. Just saying. But it has to include our sponsor, Folgers. So give us like a 30 to 60-second commercial. Do anything you want. Has to include Folgers, and we'll air it. And that sits on the show forever, and it goes over 200 different podcast archive sites, including all of the big ones. Now, our archives, if you check us out just on SoundCloud, goes into the hundreds of thousands, even millions. So that's a lot of views. Listens. Okay, so check it out. Do it. Bring it. Send it to me at the Outer Realm. Here, I'll just put it up real quick. Contact for the show. Send it right there. I'll leave this up for a minute, and let's have some fun with it. So, okay, now let's kind of jumble back a little bit with history, like, because we are finding a lot of things. I say the earth is giving up her secrets. The planet is giving up her secrets. And we see things coming up from the ocean. We see continents, little hints of things are starting to surface. We see things, the ice is melting. Of course, we can get into Antarctica. That's like a whole other thing right there. But the fact is, she's giving up her secrets. What can we expect? How are we going to handle? I mean, what if we find a whole other race of crazy three-headed people or something? What are we going to do about that? How do we play nice in the sandbox, Barbara?
Well, if you really go way back in history, when the last ice age occurred, the height of the ocean was somehow 400 or 500 feet shallower, which means that if you look at it that way, yeah, there have been civilizations that have definitely been covered up. And when you see all of the stories of great floods, basically what was happening a lot of the time, not all, but a lot of the time, was that it was a time of warming when huge pieces of ice were falling into the ocean and melting, creating tsunamis. And, they were flooding areas and of course covering up other areas. Just off the Pillars of Hercules, there are signs that there was a civilization there.
Yes.
And so if you look at, I saw one of the questions was asking, is this cyclic? And yes, it is. And if you look at Philip Lindsay, he's written a book on, I think it's Isis Unveiled or Isis something, but it talks about the 8 different ages of man that has evolved hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over time itself. And we go through different stages. And as we move into the next stage, there's a little bit of an overlap. And then we're in, according to him, we're in the Aryan root race time frame, which is a very, it's a materialistic one.
Yeah.
There's not a great deal of spirituality in it. And we're in these ages for thousands and thousands of years.
Right.
And then we flow into another one. And as we move age to age, there is usually a mass destruction event, whether it's earthquake or whether it's tsunami or whether it's a comet or whatever. And during those times of transition, keepers of time, keepers of wisdom come in and give us the tools to start to create our society all over again.
So it's a vicious cycle, and we just don't seem to be learning.
It's not really a cycle, it's a spiral.
Okay, interesting.
So we are spiraling upwards
Right.
over time, but we have a
Right.
long way to go. But that
Right.
book, it's Isis Unveiled. It's Philip Lindsay. He's an astrologer, and the book it's a pricey one.
Right.
But it is probably one of the best books I've ever read. In the very beginning ages, we literally are spirit. We haven't even taken human form yet. So that it's really quite a fascinating read, and it does get us into the fact that during this particular point in time, there is an arrogance that we are the master race. And we are so far from the master race that we can't even wave,
Right.
but we believe we're the master
Right.
race. And that this is as good as it's gotten and has ever gotten. Well, if that's so, how come? There has been flight. I mean, you take out of King Tut's tomb, there was an airplane there. There was an airplane.
Yes. Yes.
They put a motor and a propeller on it, and it flies. So there has been flight.
Same with King Seti's tomb, though. You can see the hieroglyphs of helicopters and UFOs and extraterrestrial faces of what looks like to be a gray. Like that's like, if that doesn't tell you there is some kind of a connection with otherworldly, or maybe they are terrestrial beings, maybe they've been here all along. How do we just ignore that? How do we ignore all of that?
Well, they don't talk about it. They claim it's not real, and therefore it's not real.
But then we have places, for example, like Göbekli Tepe, which buried their own. So what did they not want us to find? Like, this is, again, covering up history.
It's really very interesting. With Göbekli Tepe, especially, and there's another Tepe too that's been discovered.
Yes.
But what I find fascinating is that a lot of the glyphs that are on the rocks there are animals that were not indigenous to that area. And what was fascinating is that area is very close to where Mount Ararat is, and theoretically, the Ark landed with all of the animals and released all of the animals. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, but that's
interesting, though, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
Yes.
And if you look at the Nazca lines,
Yes.
most of the glyphs represent animals that were not indigenous to that area.
Right.
So how did they know they were, to draw them? Monkeys, alligators,
Yes.
Well, I don't think anything is indigenous to that area. It's so desert.
No,
But
it's true. Yeah.
the fact that the sites in Turkey are and it also on top of the fact that it's near the area that theoretically the ark landed, it's also
Yes.
near the area that theoretically the Garden of Eden was, that had all the animals walking around in it friendly too.
This is true. Wow. See, it's just see this is why I just stopped talking to you, Barbara. We always end up with more questions, and we just go around and more things to explore. But I do believe that I mean, let's face it, the desert at one time, would have had water. So how far back are we going there? Which tells you how far. I mean, because this one location, okay, is Göbekli is just like what, 10,000 years old, do they figure?
Yeah,
8 to
at
10,
least.
something
Yeah.
like. I mean, that's
But that's, you see, the thing is with pole shifts and everything, you have that going on as well. And when the poles shift,
mhm,
and when they really shift, not just micro whatever, but when the poles shift, they often
mhm.
can shift as much as 2,000 miles.
Right,
So
right.
that could swing that area into a more tropical zone in which it could be lush. The Gobi Desert
Mhm,
theoretically
mhm.
was once, a garden.
Yes.
And what I find, according to Philip Lindsay, um, he talks about these shifts and the pole shifts as well. And apparently, every time that an age is shifting,
Mhm.
um, the the keepers of wisdom, whomever they um, are concerned with the whole thing, and they get together and they meet, and I don't know, they have coffee or tea or whatever, but the next meeting of the keepers of wisdom, theoretically, is next year in the Gobi Desert, where once they had their temples of wisdom.
Right. That's interesting, isn't it? Be
Yes, it
interesting to
is.
see what comes of that. So, um, Dolly said the Earth flops every 12,000 years. Hopefully, we're not too close. But they're talking about the
I,
poles shifting, aren't they?
oh yeah, the poles are always shifting.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
the North Pole has been in Hudson Bay, and then it's been,
Yes.
in Sweden. I forget where it is now, but yeah, it's
Moves
always
around.
shifting.
Yeah, fluctuates a lot.
There's a wobble.
Right. We're wobbling.
Yes, but
Uh,
look at where I am in Tennessee now. We've had almost a solid week of temperatures at almost 100, if not over.
and Texas is getting hit pretty hard down there as well. I have a friend there who's just saying it's ridiculously hot.
Well,
You gotta
I think one of the things that fascinates me, every year I do a prediction for the year to come,
right,
and I've hit dead on this year's predictions quite frequently here. So,
right.
um,
Want to share a
people,
few?
well, I said that I felt that there would be countries that changed their borders. That's happening.
That's happening.
I said something about some states that will change their borders.
Mhm.
I think that is going to happen,
Right.
especially with California. Um,
Wow.
I said there would be more and more severe storms hitting us right, left, up, and down.
Mhm.
I said there would be truths that would come out that would um, be frightening and impressive. And certainly
Mhm.
we're seeing that with the government.
Yes.
Volcanoes erupting that hadn't erupted in a long time. And, that's just a few of them.
Mhm.
So, it's one of the buttons on the website. You can go back and read
Mhm.
the predictions for probably the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh my goodness. Here, the heat index in Iowa at this very moment, 9:33, is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That is abnormal. Absolutely.
And
Uh,
the other and the other part was that farmers would be would begin to be getting very confused about when to plant and when to harvest, and that's coming up as well.
Well, I think with all the erratic weather we're having, it's definitely going to cause a lot of issues on food shortages. And do you think that, and again, I know we're a little bit off topic, but I'm going to ask, only because there's always been a theory that the government can control weather. And I think China last year went public, or the year before went public about, oh yeah, we can now control the weather. And all of a sudden, in the west coast of the United States, there was something like 30 tornadoes that hit 3 days later in areas that don't have tornadoes.
Yeah. And look at they had the flooding.
Yes.
And an earthquake, 5 point on top of it. So
Right.
yeah. And I think one of the things I have constantly been saying with these predictions, and I think because I predicted it doesn't happen, so everybody can thank me, is the new the new Madrid fault line, I swear, is getting ready to go off. And that's the one that the last time it went off, the Mississippi ran backwards.
Right.
They said it was a 9 on the Richter scale, at least, and it rang bells in Philadelphia.
Wow. Gads, I'm glad I'm north. It's like fresh water will melt in the Atlantic. It's not going to start older climate. Is that talk to text, or am I just reading this right? You guys are coming out with some good ones tonight, though, I have to say. But yeah,
I think that the climate is ridiculous. I mean, I came down here to be with my son and his family, and I'm glad I did. And it's just that, they talk about global warming, and I can attest to the
climate
warm.
change is the new buzzwords, right?
It's happening, and it's not because of cows farting.
Right.
It's just not.
Yes. No, I think that honestly, I wish I had a political show, and I'm not at all political. I just try to stay like Switzerland and just try to
It's
stay
a very good
neutral.
place to be.
But it's, oh boy, not that I don't have my share of opinions on it. You guys have to go check out News on the Flip Side with Joe Montaldo on Friday nights, because that's where they get into all that stuff. But oh my goodness. I think as we maybe experience, climate change on different levels, and maybe we will keep finding new discoveries. And I really hope that somehow, while all of the chaos is surrounding us, like I always feel that, there's many things that are always put forward to distract us, and that we need to look behind that one event, because you have something really serious going on, and you have something really pretty ridiculous that goes on. But for some reason, we as society always go and check out the ridiculous things.
Yeah.
So, and I can't get into the events because, again, I just have to behave myself on YouTube. But, it baffles my mind how many of us, some of us, whatever the case may be, are so easily led down different paths. So my hope is, as all of this unfolds over the coming months or year, that we start to really pay attention to things that are going on behind the scenes, because there are some amazing discoveries that are being made, and we are just blind to it. I know, with Canada and all this kinds of censorship going on, it's just like we're not going to be given all the information. And I do feel that is starting to happen on a global level.
Oh yeah. Are you familiar with the movie Up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It had a talking dog in it.
Yes.
And the talking dog was great until you said squirrel, and his attention was gone. That's
Yep.
what humanity is like. Squirrel.
Right.
Oh, look,
Right.
there's an ancient civilization. Forget about the political stuff. Let's talk about that.
Right.
And
true.
that's what we are. Non-modal
Right.
is supposed to be a signal as to where part of the continent of Mu sank.
Yes. Yes.
And nobody's talking about that. I mean, come on, Atlantis and Mu actually at today, I would say, did exist.
Yes.
Tomorrow will ask me again. But today I'm really firmly convinced that they did 280 exist, and then myths started to circulate, and the more strange they got, the more they were believed, and therefore, I don't know what the actuality was, but I do believe that those two continents will someday show themselves.
I agree. I agree because there's already been things surfacing. Information has been surfacing about these places, and they're finding things underwater. It's starting to show itself. I think with just erosion over time, or some areas are just so deep down, but we have the technology and people are making the way down there. I have a friend who was given information. We've talked about it on the show before. Um, a friend of his had given him all of these artifacts, and one looks a whole lot like a Baghdad battery. And it was found off a site in England underwater.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, he's getting visited by men in black. And they're trying to take these artifacts. But he didn't keep everything on site. Hence, some of them ended up in the hands of this friend of mine who sent all of these pictures to us and we put them on the air. So it goes to show things are surfacing and disappearing.
A friend of mine had a friend who I knew
Yes.
who had some of the material from Roswell, and he had some of the metal with the glyphs on them, and they suddenly disappeared.
Funny that. Funny that. It's like sending something amazing for analysis and it never to be seen again. I have friends who have, things. Well, people you become friends with so many
Mhm.
people who come on the shows and who have these exceptional things, these exceptional items. Goes, oh, we sent it for analysis. I was asked to send more, and I never heard anything back from there. I'm like, yeah,
Look
chances
at
are
the
you
look
won't.
look at the book of golden leaves that Joseph Smith had
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
sent for analysis. There was a fire, no gold, nothing, just ashes.
Right. Well, everything disappeared before that. But I forgot about this. Tamara says Edgar Casey said ancient civilizations will surface and we will not be in doubt of their existence. Look at that. I even
Oh,
deciphered though for doubt. you know, and Wayne says, yeah, hold on to what you find. Yes, I think
and
so.
don't talk about it because they'll
Yes.
come for you.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think it can work against you because, again, I've got this friend who is an antiquities collector and has some of the most exceptional pieces literally in existence of on many levels because I have, we've discussed some of his collections and he's been on the show with photos of some of his collection. And he goes, how do you turn into public enemy number one for owning some of the most unbelievable pieces in the world? I said, because you don't give them up. Right?
Yeah.
You keep them, you preserve them. I mean, I had an incredible collection, and he was the first person I sent it to. I said, "You just keep this. You just keep this." I meant to pass it on to the person who can do something with this, because he just preserves and he takes care of it and documents because things disappear,
Oh yeah.
right?
And
So,
it's really, I think that there is an arrogance with governments, not just ours, but all,
yes,
where they feel they are so powerful they can just destroy evidence and avoid the fact that and say it didn't exist, and as they say it doesn't exist, then most people say, well, it must have been mistaken,
right,
and it's a shame. But
right,
they're, as people gain power, they're afraid of losing it, so they destroy any evidence that might take that power away from them.
mhm,
Even though, acknowledging this stuff and being an advocate of supporting these new discoveries would certainly
mhm,
give them greater power. They
mhm,
don't trust that.
right, right,
So, I mean, I don't want to dethrone anybody, but
right.
tell me the truth. and at
That's
this,
a very big request.
yeah,
You'd think that you were asking, for the key to the Vatican archives. Truth,
yeah.
it's true. It's a big one. Chris says technology doesn't mean we're more advanced than ancient cultures. Ancient cultures were more in tune with the earth and with who we are as people, or who they were as well. I mean, this is why it's so important. You want to learn history, go to the indigenous people because
Absolutely. Yeah.
they keep it as an oral history. They will sit down and they will tell you the history. Look at the Hopi. They're a prime example,
Mhm.
of their oral history and the hieroglyphs that they have and the predictions that they were able to make because of their oral history. And the any indigenous person, if you go in and you ask to learn about that history, they will tell you.
Oh, yeah. But then,
That's maybe the place to start.
and they don't have, but they don't have printed stuff, which is good because printed stuff would be destroyed. Look what we did with the
S-
codices with the Incas.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
they were burned. Look what I mean.
Yeah.
There have been burnings of material since the beginning of time, but I mean, even with some of Elvis Presley's songs, there were bonfires destroying some of them because they were
It's
they
true.
were suggested. I mean, that's getting a bit
Those wild
extreme.
hips couldn't be showing those either.
But burn it, destroy it, and that's what we've done throughout time. Books
Yes.
were destroyed.
Mhm.
And anybody having some book, when even when they were putting together the Bible, after the Bible was together, um, Alexander had all of the other um, paperworks, documents that didn't make it into the Bible. He had them destroyed so they couldn't question the
The
validity of the
Library of
Bible.
Alexandria,
Oh, geez, yeah, that.
right? There's a perfect example of a lot of history throughout the world. I mean, there were scholars from all over
Oh, yeah,
Europe and the Orient. I mean, they came here to study, and they would leave their writings and they would study here, and they would, I mean, just devastated.
yeah. That was one of the biggest losses ever.
I agree. But there are other surfacing. Look at the library that surfaced in Romania.
Hmm.
They're out there. A lot of things are hidden. Dead Sea Scrolls. There were things that were hidden. And that I truly believe that we will start to find more and more. I think if we as humanity can just leave things alone, maybe we can actually learn something. But we just did a show on the Mandela effect with Bill Bean. We're slowly being brainwashed with insignificant things through the Mandela effect. Change things we all know that make us believe what we remember isn't correct. So is it that we're being brainwashed or are we slipping into other realities? I
I
don't
think
know.
it's brainwashed.
See, okay, yeah,
The
right.
less you know, the easier it is to control you. And for the longest time, the Catholic Church controlled people,
Right.
by
Hmm.
creating rules they had to abide by. I think it's slipping. It's slipping now. It's no longer the corporate entity that once it was, but
Right.
there was a time frame where it controlled
Hmm.
people. I mean, I know people who are are, are PhDs
Right.
that still adhere to a lot of the stuff that the Catholic Church passed out,
Yeah.
and they're smart. They're smart people, and yet their belief system is stronger than their intellectual system. So therefore, much as it may seem strange or weird or different, um, they still are jerks.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, and Tamara makes a good point too. They're rewriting history to match their narrative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we're at that point as a society. And again, just reading all the information on your site, which God, I really recommend. I know I say this like every show, but I really do recommend you go to barbaradelong.com. It's just a wealth of information and very detailed. I mean, I couldn't believe even the page on giants, especially the Greeks. Holy crud! Like, there's so many names here with the giants and their legends. I mean, oh my goodness! I mean, that's a lot of research, but it's stuff that you just don't see out there. You don't see it, and this is the whole website. It's not just this section. It's really, really well researched, Barbara. Like, you can tell so much time has been spent here between you and your husband.
Oh,
All of
geez,
this
yeah.
is exceptional to read. I just immerse myself in it, and it's unbelievable. So much has been kept from us. But I really want to thank you for coming on. It's just always such a pleasure speaking with you. And I love how we just sort of bounce around all over the place because we're of like mind on many things. Because I
Yes.
have no choice but to behave myself. You get away with saying more than I do. But why don't you tell us all again where to find you, what you have coming up, and anything exciting?
Well, I just this last year published 3 books, so, I'm not going to be doing any more, I don't think, this year, but there are some on the agenda. I'm gonna be doing one called, Spiritual Breadcrumbs that that helps you recognize when the spirit inside is trying to get your attention without hitting you with a brick.
I love it. I
Yeah.
need to be hit with a brick. Just saying.
I
I'm gonna
usually
need your book.
usually it's a 2 by 4 for me. The website is barbaradelong.com. The other website is cosmicdeckofinitiation.com. That's the site for the cards and the handbook that go with it. But there's a link on the website for that one as well. Um, there Nightlight Radio. I do one show a week, and Mark Eddy does a show as frequently as he can find time to, and we have amazingly wonderful people coming on board. Um, I think the next really, they're all spectacular, but Gary Wayne is coming back with with a show on occultism in Nazi Germany in World War II,
Ooh,
which should
I
be
love
fabulous.
it.
It's
Uh,
great. I had him scheduled for his new book, and his new book kept being put off, and he keeps throwing extra shows in there, which is just. And he actually has a playlist on my YouTube
I
channel.
love it.
So
I love it.
the YouTube channel is Barbara DeLong,
Mhm.
and you can definitely find all of our shows there. I think we have close to 700 shows up there,
Wow,
and
phenomenal,
we've
phenomenal,
done we've done well over 1,000 in all. So
beautiful.
there's a lot of material out there, but if you Google my name, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff.
I love it. I love it, and I hope you will keep us, and let us know when this book is coming out because that sounds really exciting. Like, I know for one, I'd be all over that book because apparently, I've got guides that keep saying you don't listen. You don't listen. I have family members that come through saying, "You're not listening." I'm like, "I listen. I'm just busy." The
Well,
difference.
I'm writing also a book on an interview with a spirit guide, and
Oh, love that one.
and basically it's a back and forth between the spirit guide and the person. And when the spirit guide said, you're not listening, and so the person, said, yes, I am, and there was a yes, 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 I am, no, you're not, no, yeah, and finally the person says, and there's silence, and finally the person says, are you still there? And the spirit guide says, um, you're not listening, and
Did you write that
and
book about me?
well,
Famous last words.
what's funny is when the spirit guide says, "You're not. Are you sure you're listening?" And the person says back, "I think I am," and the spirit guide says, "If you're thinking, you're not listening."
See, that to me is funny as well as inspirational because, yeah, we have different guides, which is really fascinating as well. I have one who's not funny at all. I think I'm hilarious sometimes. Apparently, he does not share my opinion. But anyway, You know, I'm the only one laughing in that conversation. But I really am. I would really love to hear about that. I think that's awesome. And thank you again so much for joining me this evening. And I will be in touch and I will send you all the links and such. And I look forward to being able to do this again with you.
Would be a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Have yourself a terrific week and weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Well, everybody, we've come to the end of another fantastic segment on the Outer Realm. Big thank you to Barbara DeLong for joining us. A wealth of information, and that's popped up in the chat room a few times, and absolutely is a true pleasure. Tomorrow night, join us again for Mark Ollie, who's going to be discussing his UFO and ET experiences. Also, the new book. He didn't specify it was this. I'm really thinking and hoping it is. But Europe's Roswell, 40 years since impact and more. And all in time for disclosure. So we'll see you then. And until then, everyone, behave yourselves, please. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.